Street, Hornell, and Route 244 in Alfred Station. The best chicken in these parts. Clouds for today. It'll be cool with some widely scattered showers. Temperatures only up to about 40 to 45 as we go through the afternoon. Showers should end during the evening. Lows overnight are going to be 30 to 35. Tomorrow becoming partly sunny with highs up to 45. Clouds tomorrow night. Lows are going to be near 30. Clouds will drift across the area on Friday. There could be a shower in the afternoon. Highs 45 to 50. And we may have to deal with some showers during the weekend. I'm meteorologist Rob Carrollton.
Right now it's 38.
Next on AM 1480 WLEA, the Newsmaker Show. Here's Brian O'Neill.
And we are on live today on our live line with Dr. Robert A. Heinemann, a longtime political scientist emeritus, Alfred University. We're going to talk about the Molinaro and Cuomo debate. We have some clips. We're going to play some and then get Dr. Bob's reaction. Dr. Bob, thanks for joining us this morning.
Oh, my pleasure, Brian.
Yesterday, Governor Andrew Cuomo and his Republican opponent, Mark Molinaro.
The cost of taxes, the cost of doing business in the state of New York is just too high, and it has been for many, many years. The formula is simple. If you want to lose weight, eat less, right? That's the formula. It's just hard to do it. It's the discipline to do it. What we have done over the past 7 years, Marcia, is we have cut state spending to the lowest increases in modern political history. Our increases are now down to 2%. That is lower than any governor in modern history. Lower than Democrats, Republicans, George Pataki, who called himself a conservative. We're down to 2%. That allowed us to cut taxes. Middle-class taxes are now down to the lowest level since 1947. Corporate taxes, 1968. Manufacturing taxes, 1917. But that's only half the story.
And the governor goes on to, claim some accomplishments there. Mark Molinaro was pretty tough on Governor Andrew Cuomo.
Of driving down those costs. I'm committing today, as we have during the campaign, to reducing property taxes 30% over 5 years. It's achievable. It's possible. If only Albany were to control the spending and reduce what it forces down onto property taxpayers. Now, as far as it relates to my record, it's nice to talk about what happened 20 years ago or 15 years ago, but in the last 7 years as Dutchess County executive, we've been able to streamline county government, we've modernized and delivered efficiencies, and we now have cut property taxes each of the last 4 years. And on Monday, I release a budget that cuts property taxes for the 5th straight year in a row.
Mr. Molinaro, the time.
Dr. Bob, a little dry there, but it gets a little bit more intense. Any thoughts on the opening comments as far as taxes and budgets go?
Well, I think clearly Cuomo has the advantage in terms of his command of the figures there. But I think there are a couple things that he leaves out, and one is, of course, demands that the unions make in terms of increased salaries and various other kinds of advantages. And, of course, he's receiving tremendous support from a lot of these unions, SEIU, teachers' unions, and others. And, of course, they expect to be supported with various state increases and things of that sort. But the other issue there is, of course, that what Molinaro is pointing to is that the state is very adept at passing costs on to the counties and the localities and the school districts, so that New York State's unfunded mandate approach toward dealing with budgets is, I think, one of the highest in the country. And I think, all the points that Cuomo makes there, he leaves out, I think, the fact that I think New York State remains the highest tax state in the country, if not the highest, certainly the second highest tax. And that's because the state then in areas like Medicaid and some of these other areas just passes on the costs to the counties. And so the property taxes that people are paying are high.
Now, Molinaro's got a daughter who suffers from some sort of developmental disability. He hit Cuomo for cutting back on those sorts of services.
Population has skyrocketed in homeless shelters, and we need to support those individuals as well.
Just 1 second. This is so hypocritical for you to sit here, an acolyte of Donald Trump, mini-me of Donald Trump, who is decimating health care in this state, taking health care from poor people, cutting Medicaid, cutting mental health services, removing health insurance from close to 1 million New Yorkers, and say the answer is more health care service.
Okay, Mr. Molinaro, 15 seconds.
I'm surprised it took him this long to go there, but sir, I've been in elected office for a very long time. I was in office before you. I was in office before Mr. Trump.
You're a lifetime politician, we know.
Your private law firm represented Mr. Trump and his real estate interests before state agencies while your father was governor. You accepted $60,000 from Donald Trump and haven't returned it. You, when you were trying to make friends with the president when he first came to office, told him you wouldn't run against him. And you, sir, had him at your bachelor party. I didn't. So at the end of the day, sir, I have a long record of committing to help those who are most vulnerable. I grew up on food stamps.
Are you saying you don't support Donald Trump?
I'm saying that I'm absolutely committed to the delivery of mental health service.
Do you support Donald Trump?
Let's get out of this conversation.
Do you support Donald Trump?
I support anyone who is going to effectively make an investment.
Do you support Donald Trump?
Mr.
So Trump was a big topic there. Who comes out on top on that one, Cuomo or Molinaro? Do you have any sense of that, Dr. Bob?
Well, I don't. I think Molinaro should not have let Cuomo go on about those hyperbolic claims about what Trump's doing to health care and things of that sort. I'm sure some of the programs that Trump's people are supporting are going to hurt this broad brush that the state puts in terms of people who can apply for Medicaid in the state. I mean, it's just huge, and some of that can be cut back. I think also Trump's moving toward cheaper insurance for people is a very important move, and a lot of Democrats are claiming that somehow people with prior illnesses and such are going to be left out. That's just not true. The point is, if you want, and I know quite a few people, frankly, in this area, who without the mandated Obamacare requirement are basically without health care. And what Trump is doing basically is saying, here's a much cheaper form of health care insurance. You can choose here in that respect. Now, that may not include prior illness. In that case, then you've got to pick a health insurance policy that has that in it. But the fact is, by giving people a choice and giving them cheap access to a variety of health insurance, I think the Trump people are actually opening up, especially after the mandated requirement was removed. So I think Cuomo is way off base there, and I think Molinaro should not have let him get away with that. But the Democrats are throwing everything they can out there right now.
Now, the topic of Joe Percoco and the Buffalo Billion problems did come up.
First of all, your MTA costs 5 and 6 times more to lay a mile of track than it does anywhere else in the world, which means we're wasting dollars, and the savings need to go back into the system. But, Governor, what is equally important is that when you declared a state of emergency to solve the problem, it's gotten progressively worse. And at the same time,
that's not true.
It is true. Again. And at the same time, we know there were hundreds of employees brought in to work on the MTA, and nobody knew what their jobs were. There needs to be accountability. Taxpayers and consumers and commuters deserve it. We see the deterioration of our commuter train stations as well.
That is not true. You have never seen a governor take more responsibility for the MTA than I have.
Yes, I know.
I declared the state of emergency. You never saw George Pataki go near it.
I'm not George Pataki. You seem obsessed with him. But Governor,
because he's another Republican, and he is a point.
But Governor, you rushed the second
emergency action plan. I said to New York City, pay half the funding. They refused. I went to the state legislature. I got the full plan funded. Performance is increasing.
It is not, sir.
And when you were in the
Ridership-
legislature, you voted against $7 billion in MTA funding, and that's why we are
because taxing
where we
more,
are today.
taxing people more
The
is
next
not the
question.
answer, Marcia, until and unless the state takes responsibility for.
Okay, it's taking a while to get to the Joe Percoco sound, but there they are talking about the MTA. That is something that connects to a lot of people locally because of the Alstom workers in Hornell who work a lot on cars that run on the MTA in New York City. Dr. Bob, how will that last clip play in New York City?
Well, I think there's the one area I think Molinaro gets the way people are hung up. He seems to have a very good point at the way I read it, that the MTA in New York City is in a tremendous mess. And people are, and again, I haven't been in New York City and I haven't talked to anybody directly. What I know is mostly from the New York papers, and they're very unhappy. And of course, not being able to get to work or having to wait, and crowds and things of that sort of that affect people in the city every day. So I think Molinaro, has a point there. It's Cuomo has to be pretty sensitive about it. And of course, he just responds by saying, "Well, no, I'm doing a great job here. You just don't understand."
Here's the governor and Mark Molinaro talking about Buffalo.
Worked very hard. Mr. Wilson, the owner, passed away. The Pagulas
And the Buffalo Bills in particular here.
bought it. We invested in the stadium. It's about 1,600 jobs to keep the Bills. There's a great psychic value. I love the Bills, but I'm not at a new stadium.
Okay, you have 15 seconds.
Well, as a
to buy, because
lifelong
we're running
Giants
out of
fan,
time.
I don't want anyone to think I don't support the Bills. I'm not ready to embrace a new stadium. But with all due respect, sir, your policies have hollowed out the state of upstate New York. We lead the nation in losing population to every other state in America. In fact, lead the nation, despite only the state of Alaska, I think, outpaces us. But there are whole communities being hollowed out because the economic development policies that you have embraced have produced more indictments than they produced real jobs.
Ouch.
Yeah. Well, he has a point there. And the last time Cuomo ran, of course, he went with Up New York State or whatever, that he ran after pretty much every one of his campaign ads. And the fact is, in terms of jobs, very, very small number of jobs created so far from these investments or grants that the state has been making around in the area. And of course, in the Western New York, you open the paper almost every day, and the state and Cuomo's administration is providing grants here, providing grants there. People have won economic development grants of one sort or another. So he's pouring money into the upstate area. But unfortunately, as Molinaro points out, we're losing population pretty fast in this state. So, and the point is, I think that Romney made in his debate with Obama. Romney kept saying, the government cannot create jobs. That's the bottom line, and that's where Trump, despite Mr. Cuomo's unhappiness with him, where Trump has been hugely successful. We have the lowest unemployment rate. 25, 30, 40 years, 3.7%. And unemployment in a lot of these minority groups is way, way, way down. You create jobs by allowing businesses to go out and build businesses. And in New York State, the regulations and the effects of the state on people trying to set up businesses are really quite onerous.
Dr. Bob, on the topic of the Trump economy, and we'll talk more about Trump in segment 2. We're going to take a break soon. But on the topic of the Trump economy, former President Obama keeps popping up giving speeches where he says that, where Obama says that Trump is taking credit for the Obama economy. What do you think of that statement from Obama?
Well, I think that would be the sort of thing that Trump would say. It's really me here. And of course, some of these reports make the point that in Obama's speeches, Obama mentions himself, huge number of times. He seems kind of stuck on himself, I guess, in that respect. He's not that different from our current president in that respect, though, I guess.
Interesting point. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with Dr. Bob in just a moment. We'll talk national news. Stay with us.
Listen live this Saturday at 7 p.m. as Canisteo Greenwood takes on York Pavilion in the Class D football game. Listen to all the action on AM 1480 WLEA starting at 7 p.m. sharp. You can also hear the game online at WLEA.net or listen to the Little Town Living app. Don't miss this great evening of local football. Brought to you by AM 1480 WLEA.
Checking in with meteorologist Rob Carolyn. Rob, I don't think it was you who won the Powerball last night.
Yeah, I didn't win, unfortunately. Somebody in South Carolina did, and they've got all sorts of problems that I'll be very envious of for the rest of their lives. This morning, Brian, looking at a lot of clouds, and believe it or not, to our south, a little bit of lake effect snow flurry activity. Yes, Brian, we're getting into that time of year. A lot of the cloudiness we're seeing over the region this morning is lake effect, and it's going to be with us throughout the day. Don't be surprised if you encounter a shower or a sprinkle today. Temperature's chilly. You'll need the jacket throughout the day. They move very little, 40 to 45. A shower should taper off during the evening. We'll have clouds overnight, 30 to 35. Wind direction's going to shift tomorrow. That should take the lake effect cloudiness, move it out of the region, and allow for a partly sunny day to develop, but it's still cool, 45 tomorrow afternoon. Tomorrow night, partly to mostly cloudy, 30. Friday, clouds, maybe an afternoon shower, a little milder, 45 to 50. And Brian, I think we have a chance for some showers this weekend with highs only in the 40s.
Thank you, Rob. Back with Dr. Bob. The caravan, they say that's grown to 14,000 people now, Dr. Heineman, and they're less than 1,000 miles away from the U.S.